Johnston here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here.
David here.
Kuzikowski.
Corral here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Approval of minutes from March 27th. Would everybody please take a look? If there's any corrections, omissions, comments, let us know. And when you're satisfied with the minutes, we'll accept the motion.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2018.
Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
And I.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Corral, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler abstains.
Significant common council actions. Carrie, you want to bring us up to date?
Council approved the following: an ordinance rezoning a portion of the property at 9472 South 27th Street from RS3 Single Family Residential to B4 Highway Business with no change to the NO Mixed Use Neighborhood Overlay District with a conditional use permit for an animal hospital. Also a resolution approving a final subdivision plat for Caravel Crossings, Edition Number 1. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Item number 5A is a public hearing for sign effects on behalf of Mod Pizza. And with us, we have Pete Wagner to read it all in.
Thank you. City of Oak Creek noticed a public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held Tuesday, April 10th, 2018 at 6 p.m. at Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Appellant is Mod Pizza, represented by Don Nummerdor. Tax key number 813-9046-000. Property is located at 160 West Town Square Way. It is to request a variance from section 17.0334, part of the General Development Plan and Regulating Plan, which states that one primary sign per entry facade and special condition facade per tenant is permitted and that the sign height is not to exceed 15% of the retail height, 32 inches. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install a total of 3 internally illuminated primary signs, one primary sign that will be 49.5 inches tall and 51.75 square feet in area, located on the west elevation, a non-entry facade. One primary sign that will be 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet in area on the north elevation, special condition facade, and a primary sign on the south elevation, an entry facade that is 40 inches tall and 33 square feet in area at 160 West Town Square Way. Zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD, Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Development District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 21st day of March 2018. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, signed Mayor Dan Bukowitz, Chairman. This is a public hearing, and anyone who wishes to make a comment regarding the subject matter, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and proceed to address the commission with your comments. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Pete. And as Pete stated, this is a public hearing. We will make 3 calls. This will be the first call for anybody wishing to speak. Second call on anybody wishing to speak. Third and final call on the public hearing, anybody wishing to speak. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and go on to item 6A, which is consideration of that request for the sign appeal. Pete?
All right, as we always deal with Drexel Town Square, all signs have to be approved, and later after this hearing, our sign appeal will be looking at the sign plan for this tenant space. The site that I have right now is on the west elevation, which faces Delco Road. This is a non-entry facade. The size of the sign does comply with is less than what the length of that frontage of that side is, so it would be in compliance with that formula that the sign cannot exceed the length of the side that it's on. However, it will be 49 inches and change, which at this location, 32 inches is the tallest the sign can be. As a result, for the location and the height, variances are required for this sign at this elevation. This is the south elevation. This is their entry facade. They're allowed to have up to a 36 square foot sign on this side. They're proposing 33, so the size does meet the zoning regulations for signage. However, they are proposing it to be 39 inches tall, which exceeds the 32, which would require a variance in order to do that. Their third sign is on the north elevation. And as I stated in the public hearing notice, on special condition facades, you're allowed to have a primary sign. The length of this is 39 feet. They could have a 39-foot size side, but they're only proposing a 15-square-foot sign here. But the height of the sign is 45 inches, which is greater than the 32 inches that is limited for the DTS zoning district. So a variance would be required for that. So with that said, if the staff never makes recommendations on sign appeals, it's up to the plan commission. However, if you are comfortable with the proposed signs that are at this suite, the plan commission can make a recommendation granting a variance, allowing the tenant to install one primary sign that'll be 49.5 inches tall and 51.75 inches square, or 51.75 square feet in area on the west elevation, one primary sign that'll be 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet in area on the north elevation, and a primary sign on the south elevation that is 40 inches tall and 33 square feet in area for Suite 100, located at 160 West Town Square Way. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Pete. Is the applicant here? Would they like to say anything? Would you like to say anything, or you want to wait till the questions start from the commission? Okay. Then at this time, we'll open it up to the commission for questions and comments. Chauncey?
I have a question for the applicant.
Didn't take long.
That's a sneaky way.
I think you have to,
Right at the podium.
yep, press the voice button. It should turn on for you. It should go red, the microphone. And then state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Don Nummerdor. I'm with Signifex. Our address is 1827 West Glendale Avenue in Milwaukee.
Okay, so for the south elevation, north elevation, can you give a little more information on why the height of the sign? Because Pete, is this correct that the height is not compliant, but the square footage is? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mod's general image is a white channel letter. The background of the building is white. What Mod generally has is this Mod Superfast Pizza. The lettering on the west elevation is only 30 inches tall for Mod, 24 inches on the south elevation. So I guess in general, I mean, the red doesn't light up. It's just a background to highlight that white letter on the white building.
So why is the sign, how can I say this? Why have you decided to have the sign taller than the requirement?
Like I said, the lettering is only 24 and 30 inches tall.
Okay.
So I guess that's the way we're looking at it, as aesthetically, I think it fits, and square footage it fits.
And so the measurements that you gave, 24 inches and 30 inches, that's the lettering?
The Mod lettering.
Okay,
The small
for the west and the south side.
Right.
Okay.
Superfast is, 4.5 inches on one and 5 on the other.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Actually, I have the same similar question. I don't think I heard the answer, except like you're not meeting the ordinance. And my question is, why you're not meeting the ordinance height? It's not that big of a difference for you to show your sign.
I'm not following your question.
I guess there are ordinances, you are going beyond it. That's why you're asking for the appeal. You are not meeting the height zone restrictions, right? So you're asking for an appeal. And my question is, why you're not meeting that ordinance? And I think what I heard you telling Chauncey is because of appearance. But the difference for the big sign is not going to be that much.
The difference is a stacked letter set. And this is an image that Mod uses throughout their national image program. That's, I guess the best answer I have is that it's not a horizontal sign. We could do a larger horizontal sign. Theirs happens to be stacked, so it accumulates to a taller than what's allowed. Square footage wise, it fits the code and the building requirements.
Commissioner Hanna, just to give you some background on signage, the way signs are measured. If they went with just channel letters, they were just white. They used white letters, it would be on a white background. I don't know if the background was added or what, but when they measure a sign, they take a rectangular space around the sign. So even if you have just bare channel letters, we're going to draw a rectangle around that and measure the square footage. Now, it meets square footage wise. So at least I'm assuming this. They're trying to keep the 24-inch letters to the background behind it, and they took a background that exceeds the limit, the height.
I guess what I'm trying to get to from my perspective and my background, I want to make sure because ordinances are put in place for structure and how it's going to hold and weight and safety in case if it holds and how it's mounted and all of this. So if it exceeds the ordinance, I just want to make sure why it does and if it's going to be properly mounted from public safety perspective. This is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I guess we're just I'm trying to give you some history. That the mounting and the safety is very. You're right. It's number one. Key is safety. When it comes to the signage, it always comes down to aesthetics for us and fitting in the code. Unfortunately, we don't have a hard, fast rule on one size fits all. I guess that's where I'm going. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just trying to give you some history on the background, and Pete could probably fill in much better for it, but it's, what's that? No, the height is on the channel letters for what DTS restricts it to 32 inches. So from the bottom of the gray part of fast up to the top of the red is 39 inches, if I'm doing that correctly, 39
Yeah,
and a
it
half.
says right here. on the-
Right, but
That should be 32.
but from an aesthetic standpoint, I'd rather have it
Fit.
the variance which gives them the height versus stretching super fast out to make it longer and tie up the whole building, and I don't think it would look as well. So if there's not a safety issue or a problem, I think that their choice to stack it is more aesthetically pleasing for the site. Just my opinion. And it's a branding issue. If we've got we're looking for national partners, that's what their sign looks like, and I think we've got to consider that in our opportunity to place people. I don't like McDonald's arches, but that's the deal.
Anyone else? Brian?
Hey, Pete, on Main Street, wasn't the height of the sign one of the restrictions that we've struggled with on Main Street, and we've kept them to the 15% of the wall height along Main Street?
Yes,
this
I do
fall.
believe Forward Dental got a variance, but the other ones like Bel Air, Pizza Man, Chocolate Factory, all Martinizing, they all were kept to that 32 inch height. And even for this tenant space, if Five Guys, even though that sign looks much larger than compared to the Hair House and Potbelly's, Five Guys maximize their height of their lettering and minimize their backer plate, and they don't have a stacked lettering like Mod Pizza has. The other three tenants that are currently there all have met the 32 inch requirement. Now that doesn't say that this one is different. However, in the past, the other tenants have complied with the 32 inch height limit.
What was the dental issue? I don't recall.
They built the sign, and they want to build a new one, so they asked for a variance so they could install it. They didn't present it that way, but that was the case.
Or Hannah, I might have cut you off. I'm sorry if I did.
No, I got you.
Okay. Dawn?
No, I guess my opinion would be that you need to make it 32 so we keep consistency with all the others. Or just this one, it's just one of the signs, right? Of the three?
No,
All of them.
all three.
All of them.
All three require the one on the north on this elevation is 39, so it need to be shrunk by 7 inches.
Right.
And then the north end, they kind of did a much smaller. They went 15. They could go up to 39 square feet, but they're gonna keep it down to 15 square feet. But then they were going taller to 45. So I think, not to put words in the representative's mouth, but it was like we're gonna make it smaller, but we're going to make it taller.
Mod,
And then on the west elevation, the first one, which is a non-entry facade, a non-special condition, there you need a variance just to put a sign on that wall. The height exceeds, again, the 32-inch. And then the square footage, if we put the linear frontage of that to there, it's 68 feet or 58 feet. Again. 68 feet, and they're proposing a 51 square foot sign. So applying that linear frontage to that linear frontage of that non-entry facade, it's, in compliance with size, using the formula for the entry facade to that north facade on Delco. So that's why the variance would have to be, required for this one for location, height. The other one would be just the height on the north and south elevation.
The small logo of the in the shield image, I don't know that could go much smaller and not be recognizable, if it went as small as it's supposed to be.
and it is an image that they use on all their stores somewhere.
I agree with Commissioner that in looking at the pictures, unless they're playing games with their eyesight, it looks in proportion and looks to fit. Pete, on the total square footage of signage that they could have up there versus what they're requesting, where are they at? I mean, they're less, correct, collectively?
Collectively, well, it's not based on collective. I mean, it's.
I get that, but I'm just saying, I'm interested in reducing the total signage, so I guess I look at it as the whole package and try and minimize that.
Make me
where
do
we
math
can.
on the spot
No,
here. So we
ballpark.
got 30. We got 33 and 15, and so that's 52 square feet total on the north and south side, and they have 39 feet of frontage. So on both sides, so that's 78. So they could have 78 square feet of signage total for the north and south side, and they're proposing 52. If that's the math that you're making to do, but yeah, addition, double-digit addition here. Boy. Pressure.
Else, Don? Greg?
No, I don't think
Chris?
I have any. No, all the questions
Add anything further? Fred?
Yeah, just again for Pete, are you saying that the businesses that are facing the inside of Drexel Square, they're all met, like Potbellies and so forth, do they?
Yes. Potbellies, Orange Leaf, and the Men's Hair House are all compliant, and Five Guys are all compliant with the code. The only thing, the Potbellies requested a variance to have an illuminated sign in their window, which I believe was granted.
On the east.
And that was the only variance at this time. So keep in mind if variance is granted, the other tenants may be asking for appeals as well.
Anyone else? Greg?
Is this in the picture? That's the monument sign for the whole.
No, the
Building?
monument's the next one. Oh,
Yeah, the monument sign is part of the sign plan, and we'll talk about that later based on what, if any, variances are granted at this stage regarding the primary signs. Right now, we're just looking at the primary signs as to height and location.
If that, and not moving on to that really, but if that's there, I mean, that northwest corner is really going to have 3 Mod Pizza signs.
Well, actually, the sign that's right in front of Mod Pizza will not have Mod Pizza on it. It'll be on the monument that's farther down in front of Potbellies, a very small little strip.
So the company that's northeast on this strip, do they also have 3 signs?
Potbellies is on the, you're talking about the other corner tenant?
Mm-hmm.
No, they only have 2. They have one on the north and one on the south.
Okay, so nothing on the east.
Nothing on the east side,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
Are we addressing the third sign on this right now?
Yes, we're addressing this. Yep, the one that's on Delco, facing Delco Drive, as well as the north elevation, the height of this sign, the height of the sign on the south elevation, and then the location and height on the west elevation. Those are the things that are being considered right now. And then we'll see how the sign plan shakes out depending on what, if anything, is granted.
'Cause basically, I would like to bring up that the sign on the west side, we feel is extremely important for eastbound traffic and traffic at that stoplight right there. Very similar to the Associated Bank that's a block down the road, has 3 signs on their building.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else before I chime in a little bit? I'd like, I guess I agree with Commissioners Carrillo and Hannah. Consistency is important. If everybody's at 32, I think they should stick at 32, particularly on the south end of the building. That's the one facing the Myers establishment. As far as the variance goes, I think Pete kind of summed it up. We have to look at what we did in past practice and where it was. We have a tenant on the east side of that building that didn't get the variance.
They didn't apply for a variance for the east elevation. No, there was a time during the site plan review when the building was being proposed, the master sign plan for the site was being discussed. And at that time, the sign plan was approved for just to have the north and south, and the applicants were told that if the time comes, you have a tenant who wants it, a sign appeal would be required to get one on the east elevation. But at this point, to match the master sign plan for the development, you get one on the north, one on the south for each tenant space. And then you get on the monument sign as well.
Didn't they take, well, you said the illuminated neon potbelly thing in the window, right?
Right, they made an eye-level sign on a non-entry facade, and then that was granted. So they went a different route than putting up a primary sign on they didn't even ask for a sign on the east side. They went a whole different
So different circumstance.
different direction, different circumstance
Okay.
decision they made.
So,
yes.
I mean, you guys will have to judge if the west side's appropriate for eastbound traffic. As far as the north side goes with Shield, I do agree with Pat and Dawn. I think it looks appropriate. I don't know if it could go any smaller with it. Again, I think aesthetically, and I'm the one that was saying you got to draw the boxes and the whole deal, but it's a whole different awning space. It's separated. Men's Air House put nothing on the north end. Is that your name? Is that the name?
No, they have a sign there too. This is just a picture.
that's
Must have been
just an
taken
older
before
picture.
it got
Okay.
installed.
Even still, I think it's broken up enough. So, I guess that's where I'd be. My opinion would be consistency as much as you can. The variance, we can debate what's needed because you got one here on the north side, and then you go around 6 feet. You're gonna have another one on the west side. So it's up to you guys.
I agree with you, Dan.
So,
You know, the commission can have any combination, you don't have to, it isn't something you have to grant everything or nothing. It's up to the commission
It's more-
to pick and choose if they want to just do something for the north side, grant a variance, but not a variance to the south side, not a variance to the west side. Any kind of combination you can think of. So I just want to make sure, you don't feel that this is an all or nothing
keep
approach.
in mind, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to fit right.
Can I address that once more? The scaling down the sign to 32 inches tall, you really sacrifice the size of the lettering that's going to be on that red band. It's going to drop immensely. So I guess especially on the badge that's on the north, trying to get that to 32, you'll have pretty much of a nothing sign. And as far as the third sign being on the west elevation, again, I'd like to bring up the Associated Bank that's a block away. It's an identical building on an intersection just like this one. You have 3 signs on that building. You have one on the south, the one on the north, and one on the west. Seems like precedence is set already.
You're saying their signs are as height as what you're
Not as far as
proposing?
the height. The Associated Bank, I'm saying, has 3 signs. I'm addressing a couple different
Okay,
issues
I
going
got
on here.
confused for a second.
So three signs and the largest badge sign you can deal with.
2 signs at 32 and the large badge.
I guess I don't have that final authority to say, yeah, I love it, but,
Unfortunately, we do. I think.
Yeah,
we all know it.
actually, we do, and I mean, again, I'm an advocate for consistency, and we've held Men's Hair House, Five Guys, we've held everybody to it. I don't think it would be fair to say, well, last guy in gets something else, or
Mayor, I know everyone's entitled to a variance, but
Right.
if we are collectively holding them to that, I don't know why that's not discussed earlier and we save this whole exercise of coming here to ask for that larger sign if it's been stated that we haven't given it to the rest of them. I mean, I'm fine with it. Don't necessarily agree with it, but it just seems like a process.
I mean, we struggled with this at DTS. I don't know if you guys recall, but Bel Air was huge. That was a big one. Remember that one?
and Bel Air's bull, I believe, is more than 32 inches tall as well.
It wasn't the bull; it was the size of the letters.
I'm saying the bull that's on the courtyard
Right.
or whatever they might call
And,
it there.
and unfortunately,
That's
the
smaller.
DTS sign plans, when these guys are renting out these tenant spaces, should be clearly dedicated out to the people that are coming in to rent them what it is. And that communication's been broken down, not just with you guys, but with countless ones. And it causes a lot of extra heartache and concern and the way it goes. I mean, clearly, it is 32, and it'd be easier to design it that way.
It seems now a lot of businesses have these taglines that go underneath their brand name. Five Guys had shakes and fries underneath theirs. Look at the Five Guys that are by us. It just says Five Guys. They lost the tagline. I bet you we could probably, if I did a quick internet search, we could find Mod Pizza that has Mod Pizza without the super fast underneath. That could shrink up 4 inches right there. And, you know, you could shrink up the red back. I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's options here. I know as the sign representative, he can't, you know, oh, I'll take that off, do this. He can't answer that question, unfortunately. But there are ways to do it. And like I spoke to the Men's Hair House, you have 3 letters stacked up. Don't you have any other designs that have to fit spaces that are narrower? Like, oh yeah, well, maybe that would have been a better approach than, you know, just the one way of going down, you know, the path. That right now they're just showing super fast. But again, is there some room for compromise? The Plan Commission does have that discretion. You know, the limit's 32. They want to give them 34, 32 and a half. I mean, it's whatever the commission feels is warranted for this particular tenant space.
So quick question, if we say 32, it's up to them what the 32 is. I mean, they could take out super fast and make the mod larger. But it doesn't need to come back to us.
Correct, because if they can meet the 32 and, you know, they figure out how to do it because they want to keep the 24 or the 30-inch Mod Pizza channel letter sign, and then they have 2 inch, you know, an inch above, an inch below red. You got to have a thinner backer plate. That's something that, you know, the customer and will have to decide if that's acceptable or not. But
Okay, so we would be giving them the variance for the larger shield as well as an additional sign, but 32 inches.
yep, and then in your motion, you know, you're going to have to say, you know, we grant the variance allowing a primary sign on the west elevation that meets the 32-inch height, not to exceed 68. I must be reaching that age where I need to zoom everything in here. 68 square feet in area, and then allow a variance for the sign on the north elevation to be 45 inches tall and 15 square feet in area. So that would then dictate their sign plan, which we'll talk about next. We'll have to put the condition of approval for the sign plan to meet those variances if granted.
I have one additional question. How close are the signs, the mod sign, and what is that?
Between the west elevation and the north elevation?
Yes. Because are they right next to each other? I'm trying to identify the distance. So they're corner to corner?
They will be on, yes. there'll be, okay, I'm trying not to make you too dizzy flipping back and forth, but here's the shield. Don, do you have an estimate how far that is off that corner?
Say it's a good 5 feet.
5 feet? And
Then
then
west
looking,
side.
so the
Oh,
shield.
they're right next to each other.
Yeah, so the shield, I
So
gotta
this
look
would be
at the
right
screen
here?
to see my,
Oh.
so the shield will go like approximately where my cursor is, and then you'd have the Mod Pizza at the other side, which is probably further than 5 feet, I would think, right?
It's probably equal.
Oh, so they're
Sure.
corner to corner. So you will see both signs
Well,
at the same time?
I would, if you're going eastbound, as the
You'll see
applicant
this-
said, you'll see the one on the west side. Realistically, you won't see the one on the north side. You will if you're coming westbound. I guess that's what you're gonna see is that mod shield. Mod or mode.
Thank you.
Okay. Flavor of the council tonight.
For giving them the variance for the shield and 32 standard for the two other.
Would you like to make that motion?
No, not yet.
Come on, we'll break you in. We'll break you in.
Have them read it.
Okay.
Sure, I can definitely help with that. You can recommend granting a variance allowing the tenant to install one primary sign that'll be 32 inches tall in area in 51.75 square feet in area in the west elevation. So we're talking about the same square footage, but it has to be 32 instead of 49. It's the second last paragraph on page 2. That's what I'm using as my my basis for the recommendation. And you would have one primary sign that'll be 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet on the north elevation, which is the badge. And a primary sign on the south elevation that is 32 inches tall and not to exceed 36 square feet in area or 39 square feet based on the linear frontage. Let's see here. I'm just going to look at the entrance. They have 39.7 linear feet. So basically, Carrie just made a comment that, I put in 32 inches tall. That's what the code is. We don't need to necessarily put that in the motion, but we just need to state that we'll install one primary sign that is 51.75 square feet on the west elevation. So that's the variance allowing the west elevation. And that you allow one primary sign that's 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet on the north elevation. Because those are the two variances that you are granting. You're not granting any variances to the south. South needs to be 32 and not exceed the linear frontage, which is 39. Their size is 33, so they can even go a little bit larger if they wanted to. I just don't want to include
Yes.
their exact size in the motion. If that makes sense. And I can read it one more time for good measure.
Please.
Yeah.
And then
that up.
we'll be good. So you make a recommendation granting a variance allowing the tenant to install one primary sign that is 51.75 square feet on the west elevation, and one primary sign that will be 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet in area on the north elevation. So those would be the two variances you're granting, and you're not granting that third sign, which was the south elevation. So moved. I didn't enter
Meant
in
by
the 30. I
square
didn't enter
footage.
the. Yeah, I didn't enter the 32 inches because it's already in compliance. You're not granting that variance.
Just to be clear, the motion would be as Pete read it, as per square foot, including all three signs with a variance on the west side and the north side. And if everybody's good with that, just say so moved, Christine.
Move to approve?
So
So
moved.
moved.
So move.
Frillo, second.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Johnston, no.
Frillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David Chai.
Guzekowski, aye.
Correll, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Made it.
That passes.
Okay. We will move on to 6B. Again, that's a plan review for the same establishment, Mod Pizza, for the tenant space at 160 West Town Square Way. Pete?
All right, so we discussed at length what their sign plan is. So, and this because of, I lost my picture. Because of all the variances weren't granted that were requested, there'll be modifications to the recommendation to the sign plan for Mod Pizza at Suite 100 at 160 West Town Square Way. As I mentioned earlier, there's the 3 signs. They were proposing the larger signs. So at this point, we would need to make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for Suite 100 located at 160 Town Square Way for 3 primary signs, and I can write down the 45-inch tall, 15.15 square feet north elevation, a primary sign on the west elevation, not to exceed the length of the linear frontage, which was 60, I think I would know these numbers by now. We've been talking about it for a while. I think it was 68 feet and change, 68 feet 4 inches. And that way it'll be presented as well as that all signs would have to conform with the DTS MUPDD sign code. So it'll be a little bit wordy, but that we have to just make those identifications in the sign plan because all the variances that were proposed were not granted as part of it. So that's how that is. Nothing has changed from what we talked about just a few minutes ago. If so, I can start working on the suggested motion so that way you can read that as well. So answer any questions or
Any questions for Pete?
All right. The way I think I would do it would be to add conditions to the proposed sign plan. Condition 1, that the primary sign on the north elevation not to exceed 45 inches in height and 15.15 square feet in area. 2, the primary sign on the west elevation not to exceed 68 square feet in area. And that would be the 2 changes on there. Then what they're proposing, they're proposing one on the monument sign, which I need to bring up. This was the monument sign that Alderman Lork, you were talking about, that's separate from the tall Drexel Town Square sign. They'll be putting their sign up on here, which meets all sign code regulations for their monument sign. All right, should I read one more time for good measure?
Okay, everybody, Pete's going to go over so everybody's clear on what we're approving here.
Right. That the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for Suite 100 located at 160 West Town Square with the following conditions. That the primary sign on the north elevation not exceed 45 inches tall and 15.15 square feet in area. 2, that the primary sign on the west elevation not to exceed 68 square feet.
So moved.
Guzikowski.
Earl seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye. Earl, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay. All right. Moving on. 6C. Review of conditions and restrictions for a conditional use permit for the property at 10861 West Howell Avenue. And this concerns outdoor storage. Carrie.
Waiting for my screen to come on. There we go. Okay, so commissioners will recall at the last meeting that a conditional use permit was recommended for council approval for outdoor storage at the property at 10861 South Howell Avenue. So tonight we are here to review proposed conditions and restrictions. If you turn to page 1 of 6, Section 2A states that all requirements of the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code, as amended, are in effect. Page 2 of 6 should have a lot of yellow highlighting for you. These are all specific to this particular request for outdoor storage. So Section 2F at the top of page 2 of 6, prior to the submission of building permit applications for the development, the applicant shall prepare and submit for review and approval through the city process a certified survey map conveying the required 15-foot wide strip of land from the city-owned property and/or the required land on the adjacent Wisp Park property for the water and sanitary sewer laterals. You'll recall from the site plan review, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the location and access to this property for required sanitary and water. So this is getting at the requirement to convey that property, and the applicant has already submitted, I believe, a CSM for review. So that will come through a future cycle in the not too distant future. Section 3A, 1, designated area for outdoor storage of materials, vehicles, and equipment in accordance with these conditions and restrictions is allowed on the property. Other uses permitted by the zoning district in accordance with other applicable sections of the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code, and these conditions and restrictions are also allowed on the property. That's kind of standard, stating that other uses that are allowed would be allowed here as well. B, outdoor storage of materials, vehicles, and equipment shall be located within the designated fenced and gated area as shown on Exhibit A, which is attached to the conditions and restrictions. C, outdoor storage of materials, vehicles, and equipment shall be limited to those tent products, event rental equipment, propane and portable diesel fuel tanks, portable generators, forklifts, which are also listed as heavy equipment, shipping containers, trailers, and similar items directly related to the operation of the business. This is trying to get at anything that would not be related to the business that might be stored on site. We're saying that's prohibited. So no boats, no personal vehicles, no recreational vehicles, and the like. Those are all prohibited. D, storage of fuel tanks, which are the propane and diesel tanks, shall not exceed 5,000 gallons unless and until an amendment to these conditions and restrictions is approved. That's because we have a code requirement that any fuel in excess of 5,000 gallons requires additional conditional use review. Since this request does not exceed that amount, they're allowed up to 5,000 gallons. All materials shall be stored in accordance with all fire department regulations, codes, and approvals. Fire department does have to review the proposed locations and the safety and spill prevention measures. Section E, shipping containers stored within the designated fenced and gated area in Exhibit A shall not be stacked. F, hours of operation shall be between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. 5 days per week. Now, a little bit different than what was in the narrative. We got some more information that states that while typical hours of operation are typically 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. or thereabouts, there might be some times when they would have to go a little bit later, possibly for setup or even receiving some tents from a rental. So this just gives them a little bit more flexibility with hours of operation. If we go to Section 4B, access to Howell Avenue in accordance with executed agreements and access management plans has to be submitted to DOT, and all approvals and permits from DOT for access to Howell Avenue have to be submitted to the city as with any other access from state highways. Page 3, setbacks are listed. That's in accordance with the site plan that was approved. Time of compliance is still 12 months, and the rest of this is all boilerplate, saying that we have other regulations that need to be complied with. There are violations and penalties, revocation, acknowledgement. That's just the standard for any conditions and restrictions document. And then pages 5 and 6 of 6 are the outdoor storage plan that were submitted One is just an enlarged area so that you can get a better idea of what the exact storage area locations are. If the commission is satisfied with these conditions and restrictions, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council adopts the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for outdoor storage on the property at 10861 South Howell Avenue after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. So we did delve into this a little bit 2 weeks ago. So open it up, comments, questions from the commission?
I just was going to say that I don't have any heartburn over the, extended hours either. It's good to know, up front, the potential use, but would also be expected for a business.
Brian?
At the last meeting, we talked about they're showing a tent for storage.
Yeah, we were going to get there, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Do we want to put something in here that, tents will not be allowed for storage, long-term storage of materials?
Carrie, you want to touch on that?
That could be added under Section 3, Site and Use Restrictions, Maintenance and Operating Requirements, that any structures that are on the site would have to be submitted for review and approval by the Plan Commission, and no temporary structures shall be permanent structures. We could probably wordsmith that a little bit between now and the Common Council hearing.
Come on up, Sam.
Sam Dickman, 2224 East Kensington Boulevard in Shorewood. They do sometimes set up and take down tents when they go and come back, so it would be hard if we said we couldn't put up. They're just temporary structures that they, for set up and take down, they do it now where they're at. in Oak Creek.
And that's fine, we understand that. The last discussion that we had, they were talking about setting up a tent, that would be the permanent storage for their flooring material.
Correct, and we
They've submitted
converted
other
that to a
plans for
building.
that, but, so a tent's not set up for permanent storage. If they're putting it up, taking it down, that's different than a storage unit.
Okay,
Maintenance would be allowed.
okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
That's good to clarify. Anyone else? No, and I'm sure they'll work out with fire, everything. Mike's signaling it's all good, so. Okay. Brian?
Another thing that I'll point out, it's not a concern for this. Their whole rear draining, or rear asphalt there where they're storing everything, that all drains to one inlet down in the southwest corner of this property where they're showing all their tents being stored. So they might want to keep that open or use the tents to filter all the sediment that's coming off the site to pond up the water there, so.
Okay. Good suggestion, or put the aluminum there, maybe. So, if there's no further questions, comments, motion, please.
Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the that the Common Council adopts the conditions and restrictions as a part of the conditional use permit for outdoor storage on a property of 10861 South Howell Avenue.
Seifert seconds.
Oh, hold on, you want to add that condition in there?
Yeah. As discussed, I will wordsmith that condition, and it'll be in the proposal for the council hearing. So that will pertain to the erection of a tent on the property. We'll have to wordsmith it with regard to temporary versus permanent, but that'll be under Section 3.
As moved.
We got a second from Commissioner Seibert. Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Malloy.
Clark, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Crowell, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 6D is another conditional use for a trans-shipping depot facility and truck repair on the property at 9880 South Ridgeview Drive. Carrie, you ready for that one?
I hope everybody got my email. There was a slight typo in the commission report, so you should have gotten a corrected version that has the correct outdoor, or the correct conditional use permit. That it strikes out outdoor storage and says transshipment depot and truck engine repair. which is the proposed use on this property. The proposed use is actually within an existing development. So this is part of South Branch. This is an existing building. They are going to do some modifications, both interior and exterior. Any exterior stuff would have to come back for Plan Commission review likely, unless it was just repair. So typical maintenance. But what the proposal is to have a very small-scale trucking operation, and they would be requesting permission to repair their own vehicles, their own trucks, and that's light repair. So this is what the existing site looks like. There's the building with some parking around it. They plan to use, like I said, the existing building. There is a loading dock that's already on the south side. They have 12 employees right now. They work between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., so it's a single shift. They would want to reduce the parking that's on the site currently to what's on the screen now. That's parking for about 25 vehicles, and then they want to add 4 parking stalls for semi-trucks. Those would be temporary, and that would be while they were repairing the truck engines as needed, doing whatever they need to do for that, or temporary parking, probably just as a change out of equipment or what have you. Trucks, the drivers need to come in and go to the office for any particular reason, just some temporary parking there. They would require some green space to be removed in order to reconfigure this site for this particular proposal. Be they would be maintaining more than the required 30% open and green space. So this still meets the requirements. There would be no outdoor storage except for that semi-truck parking, and there is a dumpster or two, so putting it in a trash enclosure would be preferable. That would be compliant with code, and so that would be the only other quote-unquote outdoor storage item that would be allowed with this conditional use. And again, the truck engine repair portion of the conditional use would be limited to the business's own trucks. So this isn't going to be a contracted or an advertised service. If the Plan Commission feels that this is an appropriate use for this property, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves the conditional use permit for a transshipment depot facility and truck engine repair on the property at 9880 South Ridgeview Drive after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Commission's review at the next meeting, which is April 24th. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. This time, we'll open it up. Comments from the commission. Chris?
Well, this does fall in my district, and I couldn't think of a better use to reuse and rekindle and keep this property moving forward. So I'm glad to see that they're stepping up. And as far as the changes go, I really don't have any problem with them.
Add anything?
Viable use, I mean, it's, I think, the right spot for it.
I think so. Fred?
All good.
Oh, it looks good.
Chauncey? Greg?
The applicant here?
Okay.
Maria, address is 10226 Parkage Circle, Franklin, Wisconsin.
I'm just curious, he noted in a letter, they have 8 trucks, and I noticed there's 4 parking spaces.
The trucks travel all over, so they're never really all here at the same time, and most of these drivers really are not from Wisconsin. Most of them are Miami, or some are from Washington, so when they do go home there with the trucks. So they would only be stopping by the office as they do now, where we are located, so they only stop to drop off paperwork, and then really, they don't really stay here in Wisconsin for a long time. And if there is anybody from Wisconsin, they do have their own parking where they park their trucks and pay for it themselves.
With that, I just do have one more question. So they wouldn't be staying in the cabs for
No, they would
sleeping
not
out
be
for
staying there to
camping or-
sleep overnight. They're just really, if they are going to come in for any light work, they would stop there, do it, or just come in to drop off their bill of ladings and stuff that we need at the office.
Thanks.
Hey, Greg? Dawn? Ryan?
As far as the repairs go, are you going to reconfigure the building to have the repairs done inside?
Yeah, the repairs would be done inside, like a repair for brakes and oil change, nothing like really heavy duty work.
And that would be through the loading dock door, I'm assuming, coming off the, okay. Thank you.
Nothing?
Nothing, no.
Okay. I agree. I think it's a great reuse of a property. It fits. It sounds like he's going to improve. Not worried about the green space. I appreciate the letter. Please tell him he doesn't have to plead. All he has to do is state his case. I like to think we're not that vicious here. So.
Thank you.
No, I like it. And again, if you can take the trash, the dumpster, we do have enclosures that are recommended, and staff can help you with that to meet the requirements. We usually have some screening on there. That's the only difference. Otherwise, looks great. I'm glad. Are you guys currently in Franklin?
No, our office is here in Oak Creek, actually.
It is, and you
But
decided.
we just have like a smaller office, so we're just trying to expand a little more.
Well, good. And you're reinvesting in the city. I like that. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If nothing else, motion.
Seipert moves that the Planning Commission recommends that Common Council approves a condition use permit for a transshipment depot facility and truck engine repair on the properties at 9880 South Ridgeview Drive after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Commission's review at the next meeting, April 24th, 2018.
Chandler, second.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Kroll, aye.
Seipert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. That brings us to item 6E, landscape plan review for the property we just previously talked about at 10861 South Howell Avenue. Carrie?
Plan commissioners will recall at the last meeting that there was some discussion regarding the landscape plan, and rather than deferring to staff, plan commissioners requested that this come back before you. So here tonight, you'll be reviewing that landscape plan. I included the previously submitted landscape plan so that you could do a comparison. However, in the interest of time, what I'm going to focus on is the amended plan, which has quite a bit of extra landscaping that has been installed per commission and staff recommendation. So just trying to get this to play with me here. There we go. So now that the plan is working on the screen, on the north side, there were 2 additional landscape drifts that were added to the north side of the parking area so that there is some screening there. That is actually to screen the parking from the properties to the north, which are still within Oakview Business Park, but it is a requirement. Next, you'll notice that there was some added landscaping that continued down the east side of the building rather than stopping about midway and kind of curves around that southeast corner. So that provides a little bit more landscape area than just the sod that had previously been proposed down by the customer parking area. And then finally, you'll see that quite a bit of landscaping that was added around the detention pond, including some trees that are on that east side. After speaking with the applicant's representatives, as well as a representative from WSDOT, it appears that there will not be an allowance for additional landscaping between Howell Avenue and the pond because while you can't really see it on the screen, there's a red dotted line that is kind of on a diagonal right along the east side of the pond. That is a future road reservation for Howell Avenue. And WSDOT will treat that just like right-of-way I've confirmed. So they would prefer not to have any landscaping installed there because it'll just be ripped out if there's a road project there. Like I said, I did confirm that with a representative from WSDOT, so unless that changes, this is the landscape plan for this property. And unless the Plan Commission has any further changes that would be required, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the landscape plan submitted by Sam Dickman Jr. of the Dickman Company for the property at 10861 South Oakview Parkway, with the condition that all conditions of Plan Commission approval from March 27th, 2018 remain in effect. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up. Questions, comments from the commission. Fred?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is the whole property being fenced in? Or
No, the outdoor storage area is being fenced in. So basically, the fence starts on the west side of the building and the west side of the north parking lot, and then that goes around the entirety of the west side of the property along the south side to, see if my cursor will get me to the right area. Just south of where my cursor is where the fence line is. So let me see if I can highlight that a little better for you. So where that red line is, that's where the fence line is going to be. Goes along the south, curves along the west, goes along the north, and then ends at the end of the parking lot and the west side of the building. Can't see my cursor. Well, since Adobe isn't playing nice, I'm not able to actually do this with any accuracy at the moment. But yes, at the west end of the parking lot, west end of the building, along the west and south ends of the property.
Thanks, Karen.
There's a bit of a space I should mention on the south side though, because there's about 21 feet between the fence line and the property line. There will also be a retaining wall in that area.
Any other questions? Nothing from Commissioner Chandler? Pat? Nothing? Greg, Dawn, Brian, Christina? Okay.
Earl moves the commission approves the landscape plan submitted by
We're
Sam
off.
Dickman Jr., the Dickman Company for the property at 10861 South Oakview Parkway, with the condition that all conditions of Plan Commission approval from March 27th, 2018 remain in effect.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Krell, aye.
Seabird, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Right. That moves us to adjournment.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 7:03.
Lorick will second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Krell, aye.
Seabird, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. I want to thank everybody. Again, thank the staff. Well done. Working out the details sometimes on the fly. Appreciate that. IT guy, nice job. And commissioners, we had a full commission. I don't think we've had a full commission in a week or two, so that was kind of nice. Anyways, please get out there, discover and celebrate Oak Creek. Spring is coming, guaranteed.